Let me ask you, would you hire a goalie who let in 97% of the shots? Would you trust a security guard who opened the door for 97% of the intruders? Then why on earth would you keep an immigration judge who granted asylum to 97% of every single illegal migrant who walked into her courtroom? Well, the good news is you don't have to worry about it because she, along with hundreds of other left-wing judges, just got fired. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, enjoying yet another glorious day in Trump's golden age that you made possible back in November of 2024. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. The winning never stops, and today it just got a whole lot better. So here's a story that the legacy media is an absolute meltdown over. The Department of Justice has just confirmed the firing of New York immigration judge Vivian Gordon-Urakba. And when you see her record, you understand precisely why this woman should have been fired a long time ago. As it turns out, she is granted asylum in 97% of all cases that came before her. The highest rate of any immigration judge in the entire state of New York, and that's saying something. So let me put that in perspective. The national average denial rate for immigration judges across the country is 60%. The average denial rate at her own courthouse in Manhattan was 35%. And this judge, she denied asylum just like 9% of the time. Over 6 years, she decided 924 asylum cases, and she rubber-stamped 836 of them. You literally cannot make this stuff up. Think about what that means. That means that virtually every illegal migrant who walked into her courtroom claiming to be a refugee got to stay. More than 9 out of 10. Regardless of the merits of the case, regardless of the evidence, regardless of the law, this wasn't adjudication. This was a welcome mat with a gavel. She was an immigration advocate who got hired as an immigration judge. And she kept right on advocating from the bench. Well, she did. Past tense, she is now officially gone. But the firing of this left-wing activist, disguised as a judge, isn't an isolated case. She's just the latest and most egregious example of what's become the most sweeping judicial overhaul in modern American history. Here are the numbers, and they're absolutely staggering. Since President Trump returned to office, over 100 immigration judges have been fired or pushed out across the country. That's roughly a quarter of the nation's entire immigration judiciary gone in just 1 year. 12 immigration courts have seen their judge numbers cut by more than half. 2 courts currently have no judges at all. In San Francisco, which had one of the highest asylum grant rates in the country, only 4 of 21 judges who worked there at the beginning of the administration are still on the bench. 4. 13 were fired, 4 retired. In New York City, at 26 Federal Plaza, 7 judges were fired in a single day back in December. All women, all Biden-era appointees. The courthouse went from 37 judges to 25 in a matter of months. And an NPR investigation confirmed that all of these judges that were fired had backgrounds defending illegal migrants before they became judges. Let that hit you. They had backgrounds defending illegal migrants before they became judges. They were advocates who got promoted to judges, and they never stopped advocating. Now, here's what's really driving the left crazy, and this is the part you're going to absolutely love. The Trump administration isn't just firing these judges. They're replacing them with an entirely new breed of jurist. In February alone, the DOJ swore in 33 new immigration judges, including 27 temporary judges. And here's the critical part. Half of the new permanent judges have military backgrounds. All of the temporary judges are military or civilian attorneys from the Department of Defense. A New York Times review of new judges found that not a single one had immigration defense experience. Every single one of them came from law enforcement backgrounds. It's literally like making border czar Tom Homan an immigration judge and replacing him, replicating him dozens and dozens of times. Oh, and you'll love this. And the DOJ is no longer even calling them immigration judges. You ready for this? They're now calling them deportation judges. That's not a name change, right? That's a mission change. And the results are already showing. In the last quarter, 2025, nearly 80% of all immigrants seeking asylum were ordered deported. Military judges alone ordered removal 78% of the time, compared to 63% for all other judges. Meanwhile, the Democrats are in such a panic that they've actually introduced legislation trying to prevent military lawyers from serving as immigration judges, precisely because they know what's coming. But as we're about to find out, it's too late. These firings aren't just changing our immigration system in an extraordinary and profound way. They're actually changing the world itself. Wait until you see this. But first, let me ask you, what do you think you could do if you had the same insider trading information that Nancy Pelosi has, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about. Politicians like Pelosi have had access to insider trading secrets for decades now. They know exactly what stocks to buy and when to buy them. But guess what? You and I actually have access to that very same inside information. Thanks to a little-known SEC database, we can see what and when corporate CEOs are buying up in real time, and then we get to piggyback on their trades and gain the same advantage for ourselves. Gang, that is why you have got to click on the link below and sign up for a free training with me and my good friend, Ross Givens. It's this Thursday, February 26th, 3 p.m. Eastern. Ross is an insider trading expert whose recommendations have led to investment returns of over 200%. Some have hit as high as nearly 1,500%. It could be an absolutely amazing free training where you and I can learn how to trade with the same insider knowledge as these politicians, but we're going to do it legally and ethically. But don't wait. Seating registration is limited, so click on that link below right now and register today, and I'll see you for an event that promises to change your life. Now, I want to take a step back with you because there is something pretty profound happening here that I don't think the legacy media has even begun to understand. And it connects directly to the civilizationalist paradigm shift that we're always talking about on this channel and what I'm actually writing a book on as we speak. What we're witnessing with these judge firings is not simply a policy disagreement about immigration. It's not just, Republicans wanting stricter enforcement and Democrats wanting looser enforcement. What we're witnessing is a fundamental clash between two completely different visions of what a nation is and what sovereignty means. For the last 30 to 40 years, the Western world's been governed by what scholars call the liberal international order. And that's a system built on the premise that borders are increasingly irrelevant, that national sovereignty should be gradually dissolved into supranational institutions like the UN, the IMF, the WTO, the World Bank, and that the highest moral obligation of any government is not to its own citizens, but to a universal set of abstract rights that apply equally to everyone on the planet, regardless of citizenship. And that is the worldview that produced judges like this lady, this Vivian Gordon Urakpa. A 97% asylum grant rate doesn't happen by accident. It happens when a judge believes, whether consciously or not, that the very concept of borders is morally suspect. That anyone who shows up and claims asylum has a near absolute right to stay. and that the role of the judge is not to enforce the law as written, but to serve as a humanitarian globalist gatekeeper whose job is to facilitate entry, not to guard it. Her job was to facilitate entry, not to guard it. It's what's technically known as progressive realism, a globalist vision of a borderless world administered by transnational elites, international courts, and NGOs who believe that national sovereignty is an outdated relic of the Westphalian system. But here's what the globalists never counted on. They never counted on a massive civilizational backlash. What's happening with these judges' firings is part of a worldwide political revolution, what scholars are increasingly calling civilizational populism, where nations all over the world are reasserting their sovereignty, their borders, their cultural identity, and their right to determine who gets to come in, and even more importantly, who doesn't. And we've talked about this on our channel as post-security politics. Post-security politics. It's the worldwide backlash against all the ways liberal globalists have eroded the securities provided by the nation state, right? Border security, economic security, cultural security. They erode our borders with mass immigration. They erode our economic security by driving wages down with cheap labor, all the while shipping manufacturing jobs overseas. And then they erode our cultural security by inundating our nation with migratory cultures that refuse to assimilate into a distinctively American way of life. Indeed, we're told that American way of life is incurably racist, sexist, and phobic. And what Trump is doing with these immigration courts is he is literally reclaiming the sovereignty that the liberal, cosmopolitan order tried to dissolve. And he's not just firing judges. He's dismantling the institutional architecture of the liberal globalist order itself. Think about it this way. A judge with her 97% asylum grant rate was not a rogue actor. She was the system working exactly as the globalists designed it to work. The immigration courts were supposed to be a bottleneck. They were supposed to create a backlog of 3.7 million cases because every case stuck in the system was another illegal migrant who got to stay indefinitely while waiting for the Democrats to get the power they needed to declare mass amnesty and convert them into voters. And what Trump has done by firing over 100 judges, by replacing them with military background enforcement judges, by renaming them deportation judges, is that he has literally ripped out the very wiring of the globalist immigration machine and replaced it with a sovereign nation's enforcement apparatus. And that, gang, is what I call a civilizational moment. Because what's happening here in the United States is happening quite literally everywhere, from Italy to Hungary to India to Japan to Argentina. Nations are waking up and saying, we are not administrative units of a liberal global order. We are civilizations with histories, cultures, borders, and the sovereign right to defend them. And the immigration courts, the place where globalism met its most practical, most day-to-day expression, are now ground zero for this civilizational reclamation. The legacy media can whine and complain all they want. They could call it a massacre. That's one of the things they're calling about this mass firing. They're calling it also a purge. But for American citizens who've watched this system fail for decades, this looks a lot more like the nation state finally taking its sovereignty back. Hey gang, if you want to ask me your questions directly and get real thoughtful answers, join me every Monday night for our members-only Q&A. It's where we slow things down, think clearly, and dive deep through what's really happening. Links below. Come join us.